Boston police are investigating an early morning. Officials say the incident happened just after 4:30 this morning on Hudson Street in Chinatown. Investigators did release a photo and are asking the public for help identifying the person in connection to the segregation. Boston police will keep those tips anonymous.
He was in a segregation hole for 19 years. He went from civilly committed to spending more than 30 years of his life in some type of facility of torture. Welcome back to the W Number. Tonight I got a story that'll blow your mind. One of horror, torture, and sexual deviance, violence, mental enslavement, self-violence. It just keeps going and going. Something that started off so simple, but turned out so major. Someone that could have had a different life, but instead was a slave to his own mind and imprisoned himself in all ways. In so many ways. So this kid started off in Puerto Rico. He moved here to the United States when he was a young kid to New Bedford. I think he was about 11 years old when he came over here from Puerto Rico to New Bedford. He grew up in the woods near what he says is the mountains. And somebody I've talked to for many, many years on the same tier as him. He came over here, and right when he got over here, pretty much he had a few sisters, and his mother had him put in mental hospital after mental hospital for things such as acting outrageously, violently in the home, and sexually towards his sister. This kid grew up in institutions. He was, in all cases, very, very impulsive, psychotic, and narcissistic. Even as a child, he was very narcissistic. He maintained a narcissistic personality for so long that it became who he is. He's a sick man, very, very sick man. When he turned into an adult, a young adult, he was in a psychiatric hospital in Worcester. I believe he got sent there when he was about 16 years old, stayed there, committed. His mother didn't want him home. His mother didn't want him in the house. He was a serious problem. He had weird feelings towards his mother and his sister. These were expressed to me by him. So these are not, made believe, me talking out of character. This is him expressing these same feelings to me, saying that his mother was jealous, that he was in love with his sister. Things like this, right? And like I said, he's a sick man. So he goes to these mental hospitals. When he's in there, he starts, as a young adult, 18 years old, he starts acting sexually towards the younger the females that are in the unit, and they take him from there and move him to Bridgewater State Hospital. First he went to Taunton, and then he went to Bridgewater. When he went to Taunton, he had acted aggressively, and he had that sexual nature, that weird sexual nature about him. So they sent him to Bridgewater State Hospital. He had had many weird relationships with people in there. I guess he had got caught. And these are in the words of staff that I've spoken to while I was in Bridgewater, who are less like COs and more like, they're hospital staff. You know what I mean? They're Bridgewater hospital staff. I was in Bridgewater State Hospital with this man, and the personalities that this person took on were so insanely outrageous that only someone like him could do this, right? From one extreme to the absolute other. We're going to get into his nature, his history, the things he's done from a first-person account, the things that I know 100% took place, and nothing more. This is a story, a human story, nonetheless, factual story, nonetheless, but it is his story, and this is coming from me. This is not a documentary on a person. This is a story about prison, and the way prison can take a person and form them into something so, if you are sick, you are going to become super sick. If you have a little bit of mental illness, it'll exacerbate it into a serious mental illness, and so on. He was a sick person when he went there, and he became extremely sick by the time he left there. And when he left there, it wasn't good for the people on the streets, because what happened after that, everybody could have saw that coming, right? Now, he shares the name of a serial rapist murderer, Edward Ramirez, Eddie Ramirez, the Night Stalker. This is not the same person. This is Edward Ramirez, or Edwin, sorry. Edwin Ramirez. He would say, don't call me Eddie. My name's not Eddie. My name's not Edward. It's Edwin. Edwin Ramirez, right? He insisted on this, most of the time. But, he was very, very sick. And like I said, so when he gets to Bridgewater State Hospital, he's acting out in so many different ways. He's very young. He's still full of gusto. He doesn't realize what he's going to get himself into. He takes a civil commitment, because at this point, he's only civilly committed by the state. He's only supposed to do hospital time. He is not on a prison sentence. He is just too dangerous sexually and violently for a state street hospital like Taunton or Worcester State, where he was at before this, which is why he got moved to Bridgewater State Hospital, which is a more prison setting. It's a secure setting. It's the most secure in the state, which is why they use it for prisoners and civil commitments alike. Civil commitments that are too violent and dangerous for civilly committed people on the streets, right? So after a certain point, he's narcissistic, remember. So he believes that everybody around him owes him, should know who he is, and he deserves some sort of respect for who he is. I'm Edward Ramirez, right? Like, what he became was the Latino heat, right? This is the beginning of the Latino heat. So let's talk about the creation of a man called Edward Ramirez turning into Latino heat, right? He starts getting really aggressive and crazy. So one day, he's on Max 2. This is a unit in the Bridgewater State Hospital where they put mostly aggressive people, or people with state prison mentalities, or people they need to keep a closer eye on, things like that. This is where I was when I was there, because I came from a state prison, and I had gotten in fights there. I had been aggressive, and, I was somebody who came from the state prison with a reputation for being violent and aggressive. So they put me over there. This is where he was. One day, a friend of mine was involved in this as well, and I'm sure he's going to watch this. Jason Potter, he's a great dude. One of my great, great friends. I hopefully he's really good with this. I'm going to talk to him before I even put this out, see if I should cut his name. If not, his name will be right here where I said it. If so, I'm going to have to bleep it out. But my friend, they're both on the unit together. This is why I know the story so well. Eddie wants something from the CPO. He doesn't want to be there because he doesn't deserve to be there, in his own words. He doesn't need to be there. The CPO, he's trying to get paperwork. He's trying to have her do things for him that they don't do for anybody. But he thinks that she should do it. In a violent, impulsive, outrageous act, he grabs a pen, holds it to her neck, takes her hostage, drags her down the tier, brings her into the caged wing of the unit, and is holding her hostage with a pen. My friend Jason is coming out of his room, unknowingly walking into this situation. He's now Eddie's on a standoff with the COs and the staff of the hospital, trying to prevent the situation from becoming deadly, which it can be down there. Situations can turn very volatile very quickly because the people are unstable and they're violent, and there's things that happen down there they don't happen anywhere else. You're likely to get suckered on any given day by somebody who's losing their damn mind. It happened to me several times. It happens to people all the time. Every single day down there, there's something wild happening. It is a dangerous hospital to be in, especially for staff, including this poor old CPO. She was an older woman, gray hair woman. So he's got her by the neck, standoff. Jason's coming out of his room, sees this situation, goes, Eddie, what are you doing? Now he tries to reason with Eddie because Eddie can be a nice kid in some ways, right? You can talk to him on a level where you can almost get a human conversation going with him. And he's one of those kids, he's almost like a child in his brain. He's very young in his brain. because he got locked up in mental hospitals when he was a very young child, and he did not age from that point forward. I think he was 13 when he never left. Basically, he was in mental hospitals from the time he was 13 until till he was about 40 years old. He went where he left the state prison. He was 40 years old when he left the state prison and went home to do what he did. We'll get into all that, right? So Jason goes, "What are you doing, man? Why are you doing this? Eddie, come on, man. Talk to me. Just give me the pen. You don't need to do this. She's a nice lady. She doesn't deserve this, Eddie. What did she do? Why are you doing this?" Trying to negotiate, talk him down, take him out of the situation that he's in, because he doesn't realize he's about to take a civil commitment where he was going to leave after 2 years and go home after they gave him mental health treatment and turn it into a state incarceration sentence, which is what happened. Jason sees Eddie's going to go crazy on this lady. Eddie had already stabbed people with a pen in that facility prior to this, and Jason wanted to see this happen. He didn't want to see this happen to this woman. Jay, my friend, he's a great person. He had a troubled history himself, and he was just fighting to get free himself. He wanted to show, anybody that would watch, obviously, that he's a good human being, and he didn't do this to show anybody anything. He did this because he was worried about this lady. Honestly, Eddie wasn't going to go anywhere, and that's what was going to happen. He was going to end up getting violent and stabbing this woman. So Jay seen this situation escalating really quick, where Eddie pulled the pen away and was about to go stupid, and Jay grabbed the pen and wrestled the kid to the ground, and that's what happened. He tried to break the situation up, and the woman scurried away. Jay saved her, essentially, and then Eddie gets bundled up by the cops and, taken out to the ITU. And the situation was crazy enough to send him to Walpole State Prison, one of the most dangerous prisons in the country. And at this time, it was still very dangerous. This was the 90s when he went there. So he goes there, late 90s. He's dealing with a whole different crowd of people now. Now, Eddie, being in Bridgewater State Hospital, had come in contact with a bunch of people from Walpole State Prison throughout his stay there. People cycle through from Walpole, med seeking, or just simply going crazy from DDU. And at the time, they didn't have any mental health treatment like that whatsoever for anybody incarcerated within the disciplinary detention unit for up to 10 years, 20 years at a time. They would give you 10-year stretches in disciplinary segregation. So guys they were going crazy, losing their damn minds. They would end up in Bridgewater State Hospital, where Eddie would get stories recounted to him about Walpole State Prison. So Eddie gets up there with this whole frame of mind, thinking, he's going to go up there in a scary place, and he's scared. And I know he's scared because I know Eddie. He's not built like that, but he puts on to everybody else like he might be. He's a very dangerous person. He really is very dangerous, because out of fear, he will stab you. He might kill you. He would do whatever he can that he thinks he can get away with, especially if you don't see it coming. Like, he's not the type to go straight at you. He's the type to come behind your back. That's the type of person he is, because psychotic people sometimes, you can never trust them, right? That's why you get suckered in Bridgewater all the time, because the psychotic people, they're crazy, but they still know that they have to catch you sleeping in order to get you, because, they're crazy. Eddie, one day, has an issue with an inmate, grabs a pen, and attacks the man with a pen. Stabs him a bunch of times with the pen, and now anybody who's been stabbed with a pen knows the pen's going to eventually break over, the skin's going to break. Might catch some blood. You hit somebody in the eye or the neck, a pen could be quasi dangerous, you know what I mean? But in anywhere solid, bone, flesh, muscle, it's gonna bend or it's gonna break. It's not gonna puncture you and kill you like it is in the movies. It's not like that. Your skin is very tough. It's like leather. So Eddie's stabbing the man a bunch of times all over, and I'm sure there was little pokes and dents and cuts and abrasions and stuff like that. I think he hit him in the head, in the face, whatever. They grab him up. He gets caught for this, and now he gets sentenced to disciplinary detention unit for 4 years, right? So Eddie's now going to the disciplinary detention unit already very sick in the mind. He was just too dangerous for Bridgewater that they couldn't keep him there. Not that he was not mentally fit to be pushed out of there, which is something that I feel like controversial about this place. They should have never let this man leave a hospital setting because he is just not there in the head enough to do so. Dangerous, yes. Should they have kept him in a special setting? Yes. In a maximum security prison like Walpole, hell no. He could have died. He might have died if he didn't just do that. So, which is probably why he ended up doing it. He might have created this situation out of clear air because knowing Eddie, he can take any molehill and make it into a mountain because he is psychotic. He will, take a little phrase or a word that you say and turn it into something wildly different than what you actually said. And, the way he is, like, you say his name wrong and he's going to lose his damn mind. It might be fight the move team. So he goes to the DDU. And quickly they see there that he's going to be a problem child. Right off the rip, he starts getting crazy and fighting the move team. So he will go in several times a week, maybe several times a day. They'll spray him, come in and beat him up. So after a few, maybe even just a month, 2 months, he starts using razor blades to cut himself and self-injure. Maybe to get sent back to Bridgewater because other people are telling him this is how you do it to get back to Bridgewater. You're going to have to do this or you're going to stay here. And I don't think he was mentally able to do that for any period of time longer than what he actually did before they sent him back all the time to recuperate and then back to DDU. They would send him to Bridgewater, give him that little bit of freedom, back to DDU. He would get committed sometimes, stay for as much as 6 months until he flipped out, back to DDU. But you can never keep him anywhere, one place for too long. As soon as he got comfortable, he's going to do something crazy. Like stab somebody with a pen, or take you hostage, or fucking fight the cops, or cause other patients at Bridgewater to be very afraid because they are mentally ill and he is psychotic and he might, feel some type of leverage over them. If he sees any type of weakness, he will use that in order to make himself feel tough and make them think he is tough because that's what he liked to do. He wanted other people to believe he was some dangerous person. And unfortunately, they listened and did believe this. And which is why they kept on giving him more time in DDU. Every time he would assault a staff member, throw piss at them, throw shit at them, then cut himself and fight the move team. He cut himself so many times. His arms are pure scar tissue, all the way up. Now, he was in DDU for 10 years before he ever left there to the STP, where he then stayed there for 9 more. He was in a segregation hole for 19 years. He went from civilly committed to spending more than 30 years of his life in some type of facility of torture. Torturing himself, putting himself in the worst situations possible. So this is not the end of the story by any means, right? This is just the beginning. Eddie continues to cut himself. Viciously cut himself. He's not holding back. He's filleting himself. Now, I'm going to get into another part of Eddie that everybody who knows him knows. It is one of those things that it's a freak situation right now. I'm not going to express it yet because it's just one of those things that you might just need to hear a little bit further on because it's a weird thing, dude, right? So, Eddie starts running out of room on his arms. He's aggressively going at the cops, maybe 3, 4, 5 times a week fighting the move team. And every time he fights them, he'll keep going all day long. He does not stop. Screaming and yelling and cutting himself and screaming and yelling and cutting himself. It's a routine all day long. Until they finally give up and send him to Bridgewater. Now, this would go on for a month before they would give in. They'd put him on suicide watch. And at some times he would give up and go back to his cell and then go right back to this shit because he couldn't handle it. So For him, Suicide Watch, he got the attention from the mental health staff. He got the attention from the COs. He got attention from everybody. And as long as he was getting all the attention, that's what he wanted. And he continued to do this and continued to want the attention and attention seek. So he continued to cut. And as he ran out of room, he started his body, slicing his body, slicing his body. Then his legs, slicing his legs, dicing his legs. But when this wasn't enough, and the mental health staff were like, you know what, we don't care about that anymore. You're not going to kill yourself. You're just cutting, and we'll just staple you, put back together, and put you back in your cell because you're not going to kill yourself. So therefore, it's not enough. So what's he do? He starts cutting his face. Now, naturally, they want to stop him from doing this. They want the razors. They're coming in his cell. They're beating him up. Now, these COs are starting to get very sick of him, and they're beating him up because they want to stop him from doing it over and over again. But it's a way to stop you that is not necessarily right. So they start smashing him out. Every time they go in there, they want to punish this kid. So he continues to do so because he doesn't know how to stop. And now I know Eddie, so I know what happens to him. He cannot take any type of shit. He will just flip out. You could pull his button. You could push his button anytime you feel like it. Anytime I wanted to get Eddie mad, I could get Eddie mad. And as soon as he gets mad, he will get mad at someone on the tier and then spit at the cop and then fight the move team because you said something to him. And he will tell on you too. He's not the type of dude that's like a solid convict. He'll be like, so he fucking said this to me. This motherfucker said this to me. This dude's doing that. This dude's doing this. He's sick. So he can't go to population. He's made so many enemies in disciplinary segregation units that if he had ever stepped foot in a population unit in the prison, he would have literally got killed. He's a little guy. Edwin Ramirez, little dude, right? Little Puerto Rican man. Long hair, very flamboyantly gay. Now, his thing was, he would get on Suicide Watch and sit in front of the male COs, when it was a male CO, and stroke it. Now, the thing I was going to tell you about Eddie is that, and now you have to know this because he will get naked right in the group setting, and it is what it is, right? The kid's like hung like a legitimate horse, dude. The fucking, his soft fucking thing is like a literally 10 inches long, like just like that. And like, I don't know what it is like. It's just so crazy looking, right? This little dude with this like gigantic thing, dude, right? And he would show it off. He didn't give a fuck. Like that was his pride and joy, I guess. I don't know. But eventually, he started cutting that too. This dude would stick things in it all the time, right up his penis shoot, just going nuts. Like he would hurt himself in weird ways. Sticking things into his eyes, sticking things to his dick, sticking things into his butt, thinking that they would have to go and take it out. So they send him to the hospital, they send him back to his cell, they go and take it out, do the same thing over and over again. And so when he started to learn all these little manipulation tactics, he would do them. He would use it over and over again because this is all he could do to get out of his cell where they would keep him because it was too dangerous for him in population. And he would keep on assaulting cops. He would keep on assaulting cops, keep on assaulting cops. He would even assault nurses. Nurses put the meds in the trap. He tried to grab their arms, shit like that. He was not immune. Anybody who got him mad, anybody he could take his righteous anger out on, he would do it in any way he could, knowing that he was safe behind the door from actual, real, deadly violence. Because, as long as it's just the COs or the nurse, whatever, he can get as mad as he wants, get beat up, even if he gets beat up really bad, which is what they're really good at doing. If they want to make you feel pain, they're going to make you feel pain. They'll twist your balls, they'll break your toes, they'll break your fingers, they'll break your, arms, whatever they can do, break your ribs, pressure points in they are trained in the art of pain. This is what they do. They run in on helpless prisoners and hurt them. So if, you do that enough, you learn what hurts someone. They learned what hurts him. Eddie's a little guy. They would hurt this kid. Later on in life, he learned a different maneuver, right? And that's when he moved to a different prison. But it took 10 years of the most intense self-injury, self-violence, and then violence towards the staff, nurses, hospital staff. Every time they sent him to the hospital, he would get into some crazy bullshit and they'd send him back. They opened up this tier called the Secure Treatment Program, and Eddie, along with my other friend that I mentioned on one of my lives, I think the other day, yesterday, they opened up the STP together, right? So he's one of the first people that were over there because he was in DDU since the 90s, and in 2007, when they opened it up, he had been there since 1997, I think, or something like that. Eddie, I think he was 43 when he left, actually walked out of a state prison, I think. Yeah, you think he's 43 years old or 44 years old. When he gets the STP now, nothing's changed at first, right? Eddie, they call him Latino Heat, notorious in the disciplinary segregation unit. Everybody over there knew Eddie Ramirez, Latino Heat. But before he came over to the STP, there was like this unspoken respect for this kid because he would not give up. He was relentless, and he would do anything to himself based you know how to get him going. So if someone on the tier wanted recreation, they'd be like, Eddie, you fucking bitch. Now, for the whole day, this kid's flipping out, fighting the move team, cutting himself, and you sit there and you're like, if you're that type of dude, bro. I hated it when that shit was happening because it makes the whole tier noisy. I like to read, work out, and do my thing. And if someone's yelling and screaming and fucking acting up and there's COs on the tier all day, I can't do what I want to do because the COs are, you can't talk around them. You can't do your shit around, whatever it is. Like, you can't live a normal life with this kid on your tier. Now, Eddie be flooding the tier, but, clogging his toilet. You put a cup in there, stuff socks in there, flood the toilet, pop the sprinklers, rip the toilets off the wall, rip the friggin' mirrors. Whatever he could do to break the cell, he would do it. Cut himself to shit. Smithereens. Like, you see Eddie, and you look at him, and there's no legit skin. It's all scar tissue. His whole face just razor slices. He looks like Edward Scissorhands and him got locked in a paper bag for 1,000,000 years and he tortured him for like the whole time. His whole body is shredded in ribbons. And this poor fucking kid, I actually felt really bad for him. The first time I ran into him in a state prison, the first time I ran into him was in Bridgewater State Hospital in 2011. When I met him, he was so quiet, so nice, so like, I would have never known that they would have called this guy Latino Heat, and he was anything other than just a little gay kid at the hospital with scars all over him. I never thought anything of it until I seen him in the Max. And when I seen him up there, and what the persona that he put on behind the door, and how his ego filled that whole place, and he became a madman, the light switch in his head goes off as soon as he's behind that door. Even if he's out on rec, and then as soon as he walks in from the rec, even in the hospital, he's a different person. If he knows he's going to come out without handcuffs or shackles, he won't act like that. Which is why I think there's a dilemma in them keeping him up there. Because they could have put him in the hospital after a certain point, and he would have been the little nice kid that I saw. Mind you, with a lot of enemies. But they couldn't keep him at the hospital for too long because eventually they would think he's going to do something. He can't stay there. Eddie's just, or they would say he's not sick enough, he's not suicidal, there's no reason to keep him there. And they had to have a strict standard across the board, which is ridiculous. They should have kept him there. So they send him back. He comes to the SDP. I get to the Max. I mean, I've been in the Max for a while. I just never saw him because he was always in the SDP, and I had not gone to the SDP. I was still not SDP qualified. Like, I didn't have the SMI. Like, they didn't put me up there for my DDU. I would go to regular, the whole or DDU, whatever. And it took me a little bit, for that thing to kick in. So, he was always up there. I never saw him, right? But when I was in the HSU one time, I had swallowed a pack. The Ips ran in on my cell. And I had a bunch of Klonopins. I swallowed the Klonopins. I told them it was a razor blades because we're not allowed to have pills. But we also weren't allowed to have razor blades in that unit. So I told them it was razor blades so that I didn't lose my medication. because if they catch you with other pills, they'll take your psychiatric medication away. And that was honestly the only thing that gave me any type of solace in that facility, is I would get my medication on time, and my depression would be at ease, anxiety, whatever. And I was on a good little cocktail for a long time, right? Klonopins, Adderall, gabapentin, Wellbutrin. I'd take them just as prescribed, and I'd feel all right, So, and the sick truth of it is that you could use drugs like a crutch out here just as much as you could use drugs like a crutch in there, except they're just right in your face all day, every day. And after double bunking, they sent in street doctors in there to give everybody crazy good pills so that they would pacify the place. And then as soon as everybody was pacified, they came in and stripped everybody away. But when they did, I had already displayed some type of psychoticness that they felt like I might need the meds anyways, right? So they kept me on all my meds until I went to so crazy, like not crazy like that, but like I was violent. I was young and I acted out very aggressively, and they thought that maybe the medication was doing that. They sent me to Bridgewater, stripped my meds, and sent me back on only some of them. Yeah, I lost them after a little bit for being aggressive. They thought it was them, but it wasn't them, because as soon as I was off, I was even worse, right? But they never came back to me. But, it is what it is. I mean, I did get some of them back after a little bit of time because, I made them. But, yeah, so Eddie's up there. Now, Eddie comes up with this idea that he's going to light his cell on fire, right? So what they would do to Eddie is that he would act very inappropriate sexually to the female staff, even the male staff, to the point where he would creep them out so bad that they would send him to the regular hole to cool his jets. So you would bump into him as you go to the hole. Sometimes he would be in the regular hole with all the other maximum security convicts. And, you would see him on the tier a lot. And he was always quasi-normal when he was in the hole. He never acted the same way as he did in the STP. But when he was in the STP, he was nuts, bro. Right? When I was downstairs from him, when I first got up there, right, I never knew it was this kid. But I was in a cell in L2, when L2 was orientation, and he was in L3 in the STP before they moved it to M3. And he was in one of them cells, and he would sit in his cell drumming day and night nonstop, 24 hours a day for 72 hours straight. And that's what I mean by psychotic. The kid was mentally psychotic. He would do things with extra energy that you could not get in a normal human being. That's why he could keep going and fighting the team and fucking cutting himself and, acting crazy towards the COs, yelling out the door all day long. Ah! Screaming and screaming like he never got the hint that didn't bother anybody but the convicts on the tier. The cops would just go in the bubble and forget about him, and he'd be out there screaming at them for the whole day, into the night, late into the morning, and then finally he'd stop. But when he was drumming, he thought of himself as a professional drummer. He used to tell people on the tier these lies, all these different lies, right? He said that he was a drummer when he was a teenager. He was a professional drummer. Like, he used to play in a band and shit, right? He was never able to do that because he was always in a psychiatric hospital. But this is what he would tell you. He was a drummer. Really good at it, right? The only thing he ever drummed on was that locker. And it was annoying, bro. The whole tier could not sleep. People underneath him could not sleep. And sometimes he'd get going on the toilet when he didn't have when they started taking things out of his cell and piece by piece until he was left with nothing in his cell. They kept him in there with a boat bed in the middle of the floor, with a camera in his cell, and no desk, and it's just a toilet. He was not allowed to have most property unless he really earned it, and he would go maybe a week, maybe 14 days. The longest I ever seen him go was 2 months, and then he lost it all. He would get on phase 2, stay on phase 2 for maybe 2 weeks, gone, right? Never kept his stuff, was constantly in a cell with no TV, no radio, no books, nothing. Now, years and years, these spent 19 years like this, in a cell with nothing. Even before they took all the stuff out of his cell, he didn't have property because he would destroy it. They gave him a tablet when they came out with tablets, and because they wouldn't show him how to turn it on, he smashed it to smithereens. And they're like, yeah, we're not giving you another one. You know what I mean? He's like, Eddie, why would you do that? They just gave you that. Everybody already had him for a long time, and he wanted one so bad, and finally get it, and he couldn't even figure. He didn't know how to turn it on, so he broke the thing. And it's like, what is wrong with you, right? So, anyways, right, he could not have privileges because he would ruin it for himself immediately upon getting them. So he would color a lot, and he was very flamboyant, like I said. So he would go inward, and he had these delusions that people were coming in his cell at night and raping him. Or if he went to court for a certain thing, he would say that they raped him. So, they would move him over onto the whole tier. And he came up with this bright idea one day. He's going to light his cell on fire. So he's in the cell while it's on fire. And he can't breathe. You'd think after that first experience where he's breathing black smoke into his lungs. And the cops are like, yeah, you're sitting in there with that, dude. I don't care if you die or not, right? Smoke damage, all that to himself. And he's got a straw. He rolled up a piece of paper and was put it underneath the door, trying to breathe through that, right? Now, black plastic smoke billowing through his cell. He lit his mattress on fire, all the paper, everything in his cell on fire. So they tell him, look, man, you got to stop doing this. He continues to light his cell on fire all the time, everywhere he goes. And he learned the electricity in the walls. He learned how to take the thing off and, turn his light on through the electricity in the walls, because they wouldn't give him privileges to a light switch because he would light fires. You know what I mean? So he had to figure these things out. So he would go into the light, take the thing, spark it, fires. Like, he would turn the light on. He would blow the neighbor's power so that they couldn't use their thing or they couldn't watch their TV. He was a menace, right? He was so bad, nobody wanted to be around him. Banging on the walls, yelling, screaming, playing the drums, and flooding out and fucking blowing their power. It was just a man. It was terrible. Then when the days when he was cutting up, it was like blood all over the place. Moved him on the tier. It was terrible. It just sucked, And then they put him on suicide watch. They have the CO sitting in front of his door, and anybody on the sides of him would have to sit with the CO in front of his door. And had to kind of watch what they say on the tier, all that shit. Couldn't fish down, the cops that were sitting out there, they didn't really care. You'd be fishing, and they would just look the other way because they knew how annoying Eddie was for everybody. So right? He keeps lighting this cell on fire, and they give him 7 more years on and after. He's doing it all in the hole. So now he's taking a 2-year civil commitment and turned it into a 20-year prison sentence. All in the hole. Where he spent 19 years in the hole, leaving after that much time in the hole as an older man that still acted like a little baby child. And at that age, so there's so many different things about this dude that were so creepy, right? So one day we're in the cages, right? And we were going to school. Now they give us Shark Tank cages. There'll be 6 of us in each cage, right? So one person in each cage, and a lot of times they would have, a female CO or a sergeant that worked over there. And one day there was this female sergeant. It was named Reagan, right? And she was a nice lady. She would, she was by the book, but she would make sure that you got what you needed, but nothing more, nothing less, right? She was just by the book. And you know what to expect from her, so that's what it is, And I can respect someone like that because you know what to expect. As long as you don't switch up, that's all right with me. But you couldn't have your clotheslines up. You couldn't have stuff in the back window. That's just how she was. But everything else, if you needed it, she would make sure you got it. But so Eddie's in there one day, and he must have been ready, right? So we get all put in the cages, and next thing you know, like, his clothes just came off. Like, I turn this way, and I turn that way, and he's butt-ass naked with a giant fucking boner. And he's like, oh, that's what you want, huh? This what you want to see, huh, bitch? I'm like, yo, what the hell, dude, is going on here, bro? We're all sitting there, and it's like, yo, dude, what the fuck, bro? Reagan's like, are you fucking shitting me? Now, she's in shock, bro. Doesn't even know what to say, dude, right? This thing is massive, bro. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude, right? And, she just turned down her heels, like, oh my God, he's in there beating up. Like, he's in there fucking going crazy with butt naked. Like, oh, man, dude. A scarred up human being with a fucking giant cock. Like, there's nothing scarier than that thing, dude, right? Oh my God. Right? So, this is the type of dude he was. I was his neighbor one day, right? And there's this lady, Stacy, coming around. She's mental health, does her rounds every single day. And I was his neighbor for a long time, right? So she coming around and she stops at his door. Every single day is the same thing. Knock, knock, knock. Don't knock on my fucking door. I told you not to knock on my fucking door. Don't fucking knock on my door. It's all a show because every day they knock on your door because they have to. Unless you're standing up and looking at them. And even still, she'll give a little knock before she looks in the window to make sure everything's okay. Right? So she don't look in on a person pissing or shitting or beating off or whatever the fuck you're doing. Right? So she gives a little warning and boom, looks in like, so he's in there laying in bed. Obviously, she's going to knock until he gets up, right? Because she has to make sure you're okay. He fucking whips off the blankets butt naked, stands up on his bed like this. What the fuck you want, huh? It's like, Eddie, bro, what the fuck, you little creep, right? This is the type of dude he was, bro, right? This is just nuts, dude. Completely bonkers. And the more time he spent in the hole, the more narcissistic he became and the more sick he became, the less he knew. And now he had spent so much time up there that I don't even think he knew, and since a little kid, so I don't even think he knew what real and what fake or what right and what wrong was. It was just, what's Eddie's world, what is he like, what is he doesn't like, and what does he feel like doing, what does he feel like not doing. And it's just, this is his world. He doesn't know anything else, and this is his life. And as far as he was concerned, anybody else was concerned, he was never leaving there. Ever. And I could have told you, like, he's never leaving. He's never going home. He's going to go to the sexually dangerous treatment center because that's where he needs to go because of the way he acts towards females and other people. Apparently, they did let him go straight home. And unfortunately, he went home and raped the little girl, and fucking boom, he's back on some crazy shit. I believe the state contributed to this situation so heavily because he needed treatment of so many types. And the cold, aesthetic environment that they put him in created something that was not Eddie in so many ways. Eddie was docile, but behind the cell door, he became a monster in his own eye. Eddie was the type of kid that was maybe sexually dangerous, like, the way he was acting towards the girls in the psychiatric hospitals, like grabbing up on them and fucking, trying, saying fucked up shit to him, and just the way he was, he had no switch on him, like he just, he was narcissistic. He felt like everybody wanted to love him, everybody wanted to touch him, everybody wanted to fuck him, like he's the best, like that's just how he was. And so, like, I feel like he needed guidance of some sort. Like, he needed some type of help. Because, like, anybody spends enough time in the box, they're going to have some type of fucking fucked up thinking. Like, not like him in any way, but, like, you could become so angry or so mad sometimes, like, because you have no physical contact in that little room. And, you fiend for physical contact. So you'll fight the move team just to get your anger out. Because you'll become so mad. And sometimes you get to thinking you're working out so hard, you're leaving there and you're going to be fucking dudes up left and right. When you get downstairs, it's like, you don't want to go back to the box so quick. You just chill out a little bit. You know what I mean? And everything is not as you think. When you're in the hole, you can build stuff up to be so big in your mind. And that's what I imagine he did in the box for 19 years as a psychotic person. And nonetheless, like, this dude was psychotic. This built him up to be something he fucking didn't even know. He was a monster. He turned into a monster. But they knew that if they let him out of there and put him in a population setting of sorts, maybe even just PC, that's where he needed to be, PC. But he was still dangerous maybe to the other PCs down there, because he needed to be around people that he couldn't take advantage of, or he might take advantage of them. Because he was a weak person, and he could be intimidated by anybody, but if he was around people that he could intimidate, he would. That's why he targeted, women and shit like that, because he was a victimizer. He victimized people. And he would scream at them, yell at them, say mean things to them, and fucking, scare them, like, verbally, and fucking, just being a menace. He was just bad to people. And he thought people really loved him. Like, I told him one day that one of the mental health clinicians told me he had pretty hair. He's like, oh, really? He's like, I knew she thought that. I see the way she looked at my hair. It's like, yo, dude, I was just fucking with you, bro. He went in there every day. He started brushing his hair and putting the gel in it and shit, bro. Like, that's the type of dude he was, bro. He's just so sick, bro. And unfortunately, Eddie is a lost cause to the world now. I think that at some point there was a possibility of saving Eddie. You know, there was a possibility to save him, but because he had spent so long in that box, so long, he lost all hope, dude. That's what happens. And I feel like there's oversight. There's things that we overlook as a state and as a society for people who are incarcerated with mental illness that could be potentially dangerous for everybody. Not just the people in prison. Because one day, most people leave prison even if it's after a very long time like him. And for someone like him to exacerbate his mental illness all the way up until the day he walks out the door is a terrible idea. You didn't take any steps to try to mitigate those mental health disorders that they had exacerbated in so many ways, so badly. Because as the years went on, he became more unstable because at first he wasn't having delusions. He was perfectly able to see, life for what actually was rather than, as the years gone by when I was with him. I was with him for about 7 years. And as time went by, he started to say things like people were coming in his cell at night and raping him. He went to court and Ryan Carney, the CPO, and some other people caught him down in booking and raped him. And it's like, what are you talking about, bro? Nobody's like, he's just really sick. And he had maybe dreams that he thought were real and he really believed it. He believed that there was dinosaurs in Puerto Rico and everything was in Puerto Rico, and they got this, and they got that, in Puerto Rico. It's like, and he hadn't been there since he was like 11. You know what I mean? He was making up stories, dude. Like, he needed to continuously do this to get attention from the people around him. Well, anyways, that's the story of Eddie Ramirez, the most psychotic person in the Massachusetts prison system by far. And if I did not do that justice, because I really feel like there's so much to his story that I could not possibly tell you in this 1 hour session that I have between this time and this time. I only got very late into the studio today because it was taken up all day and it's a storm out there today. So I'll show you the street right now. This is the street right now. Beautiful, rainy, crappy, shitty ass day, right? And this guy doesn't even know, right? But anyways, I'm glad you guys showed up for another exhilarating episode of the W Number Podcast, where we put on display everything prison the way prison is. Not the way you think it is, but the way it really is. Because I'm not gassing it and I'm not passing on it. It is what it is, how it is, and this is what I'm going to be speaking on. It's truth, facts, no fiction. And the people that populate the system, the eccentricities of the people that populate the system. And I feel like the next video I do is going to be on the historic gangsters of the Massachusetts prison system, such as Dennis Day and Ricky Costa, both who passed away, which is, I feel like, their lives are well known, and so the crimes are well known, and they are so thorough. Like, these dudes ran Walpole in the most deadly era of Walpole. So I think that's what we're going to do next. Keep an eye out for that. I'm going to have to do some research on it. I appreciate everybody who showed up today. Keep an eye out for new videos, no matter what they are. Click on my videos. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. If you can, my Cash App is cash, the money sign, the word the, W number with no dash. Just the word the, W number. If you want to donate and help me out, help the channel progress, this is what I need. Every little bit counts. I much appreciate it. We're a movement. This is a community. The live streams, show up to my live streams, converse. Let's do this. I want ideas. I need people to, give me stories. Send people my way with great stories that have been incarcerated, or family members that have been incarcerated, people with really traumatic stories. Send them my way. I want to know all about it. I appreciate everybody who showed up again. Guys, have a good night. W Number out.